Hey everybody, welcome to the Marquez Says Show. I'm your host, Marquez Mosier, and this is my co-host, cohort, and eldest son, Austin Jordan. He and I always seem to bring out the feisty side of each other, and it leads to some very spirited conversations. There's never really any one topic. We see the world from many different perspectives, and sometimes we agree, and sometimes we don't. Either way, it gets very interesting, so sit back, relax, and have a bit of fun at our expense as we explore some of the most unexpected perspectives you'll ever hear about the world we live in. So, let's get started. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Good morning, everybody. Ooh. Welcome to the Marquez Says Show. I am Marquez. This is my co-host, cohort. Didn't even mention I had a new shirt, but it's a little baggy because I haven't washed it. But that would be Austin.
Hello.
Say hello again, Austin.
Hello.
No, you're supposed to say hello again, because I said hello again. See? Like, say goodnight, Gracie. Goodnight, Gracie.
I don't get it.
Yeah, you win it. You're way too young. Actually, I'm too young for that, too. That's actually... So if we have any, the more mature audience, you'll get that reference, but... Yeah, but I...
Did you just call our audience old?
No, I did not. I said more mature. Wisdom, knowledge. You know, demographics. That's what I was talking about.
Demographics? Demographics are super subjective.
Oh, God, yes. We've been arguing already all before this about basically, should we cater to the lowest common denominator?
Okay, but that wasn't at all my point.
What it started with was that I had read an article that had survey, poll, whatever it was, that indicated that in the political parties, more people disliked the other person more than they liked their current person.
Okay, but how did you phrase it when you actually said it to me?
I said it was the first time that people answered these questions in this way, that they disliked the other person more than they liked their own person.
That's more clarifying statements than you had when you first told me.
I said hate and love. I said that was the first time that the people hated their person more than they liked their person. That was what I said.
Well, but what you had originally said was it was the first time that more people hated the other than they actually cared about their own guy. Right. And? That's a very bare bones statement. Right.
And then when you asked me to go further, I explained it. And it was then
I challenged it initially because everybody said the same thing last election. Was, people didn't vote for Hillary because they hated her more than they liked Trump, which was the main dominant messaging the entire aftermath of that election. So,
but not everybody. See, that's the thing. You're saying that happened. Yes, it did happen. Yes, it happened in great numbers. But the point is that the numbers were greater this time around. This is what the point was, that those numbers were greater this time around than they were the last time around.
Right.
And they were greater than the time before that, and the time before that, and the time before that.
Or not necessarily you, but the way that it was phrased, though, was kind of ambiguous in the sense of, yeah, I mean, maybe of course that's true, but it sounds like that it's a new problem. It's not a new problem.
No, and I even said that. I gave that to you. I was like, yes, it's been building and building and building and building. And it was the first time that these questions were answered in this way. They were all the other times that these questions were answered, the results were not the same. This was the first time that they were answered this way.
Okay, but on one study.
But who cares? It was consistent. It was the same question. It was the same questions.
It can't possibly be consistent. It's different people answering the questions.
Of course it is. But last time they were asked about their candidate and the other candidate. This time, the time before that, it was their candidate and the other candidate. It would never be the same people.
Exactly, which is why a lot of people would argue that this method of polling is outdated and doesn't work very well.
But that still has nothing to do with the fact that based on this set of questions, it was the first time that it happened.
The questions aren't the important part in this, is what I think you're missing, and maybe what a lot of people are missing, is it's different people answering these questions. You could give these questions to a whole bunch of people. The questions don't matter.
So what would be your solution? How would you?
There's not really one, which is the thing. Is they're at least not completely evident.
How would you ask all of a sample of Democrats and a sample of Republicans how they feel about their candidate versus how they feel about the other candidate? And then how would you compare that to the last election?
Maybe we'd have to start putting it on the ballots themselves. Or maybe a better and more effective way would see who is registered Democrat and voted Republican, or who's registered Republican voting Democrat. That would be a much more effective way to actually monitor it.
And if, like me, I'm independent and I don't actually get to vote in the preliminaries and stuff because I'm not associated with a party.
Yeah, but that wouldn't really have anything to do with the national presidential election at the end of the...
Well, I think independents probably sway back and forth between Republicans and Democrats.
I agree, but that wouldn't necessarily have any impact on the final...
So just because a Democrat, say, voted for a Republican, I mean, that would indicate something. But it doesn't mean that they didn't be loyal. Like Republicans, for example, a Republican voted for Trump because he was the only Republican option.
Right. But that proves the point, though, is they did not.
Yeah. No, again, it's the fact that they dislike Trump. Like, for example, 40% feel that Trump, 30%, because I think that's the accurate one, 38% feel that Trump is untrustworthy. That same person feels that Biden is 60% trustworthy, but they're still going to vote for Trump.
Well, yeah, they think that he's less untrustworthy than Biden.
No, I meant trustworthy. That's my point. Is that they felt that Trump is less trustworthy than Biden, but they don't like Biden. So they're going to vote for Trump.
So partisanship.
Right, but the point is that they hate the other person more than they like their own. Like the approval ratings. For example, they give Trump an approval rating of 40%. They give him but they would actually give an approval rating of the other person for basically less. They don't like him, but they like the other guy even more. They dislike them even more. There's more hate for them than there is love for their life, because you should have an approval rating of like 50 or 60%.
Right, because you should at least have your base. But that kind of sounds like it's proving my point. No,
they're not mutually exclusive. The point is that it's not that it's never happened or it hasn't been building and all that stuff. The only point is that it's more now than it's ever been.
Okay, but you could make arguments that yes, it's more now than it's ever been because one, you've got more people voting.
Why? Even if it was the same amount of people, I mean, and even the percentages, the fact of the percentage of the electorate, or you know what I mean, the percentage of the population, because you're always gonna. So I guess if you fast forward to next election and not as many people vote, does that for some reason mean then that there wasn't as much hate or love?
No, but we shouldn't really be deciding our president based off of how much we hate or love the person anyway.
That's not the question at hand. We're strictly talking about the fact that more than any other time, based at least on this little simple question, and I think it basically just illuminated what we already knew, more people realized that there was more divisiveness, and the fact that you're supposed to like your guy or girl more than you hate the other person.
Nobody's arguing that's a true statement. The problem lies with the rhetoric of saying, for the first time in U.S. history, this happens. Because, again, like I'm saying, it puts a mark on the saying that, oh, now this is a problem. Now this is something.
I think, but that is subjective. Because some people would just go, no, it's not. It's been happening. Like you. No, it's not. It's been happening. It's been happening.
You're giving more faith to people than I think.
Wait, you just said that people should have already acknowledged. So you're telling me. Are you telling me that all of a sudden that because of its phrase that for the first time more people hated the other opponent than liked their own, they're gonna all of a sudden go, oh my God, what's going on? I didn't know that was going on. I didn't know that. There was, some problem.
Yes, some might. There's a lot of young people that are just now becoming politically conscious in a way much earlier than they have before because we've got the internet and all this stuff.
If they're so new and everything, then they probably didn't know about last election.
Right. Exactly.
And so on and so forth.
Right. But it's basically saying that, oh, now this is a problem. Is it, us Gen Zers or us or whatever, we're looking at this problem in 2020, not realizing it started.
What difference does that make?
It's more urgent.
It would be. And that would be a good thing.
No, it's more urgent that if it started in the past than if it does right now. Because the way that people treat problems.
So then again, we're supposed to educate younger generations for all the things that have come before. just to make a point. No, I mean just to make a point like this. I'm not talking about schooling. I'm not talking about history. I'm talking about that in this political whatever, like for mail-in ballots. I think it was pretty clear that it was clear that mail-in ballots had never been used at this extent, this level ever before.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but
again, though, these are objective things we can prove without a shadow of a doubt. We can prove with physical numbers.
I guess I don't understand. What difference does it make if we can establish it or not?
Because the results are different. We have to treat results differently. We can't treat everything the exact same way. It's like in a scientific lab study.
But no, it's not. It was just an article based on this stuff. If you don't believe it and you don't want to trust it, so be it. That's fine. I don't understand, but that is exactly the point. So you say that it's been happening. Okay, you're so afraid that someone is going to therefore go, oh my God, I didn't know this was happening. I should pay attention.
No. I'm afraid that that news outlets or whatever will exploit it on purpose. I'm not saying that necessarily this article did that. It sounds like it kind of did, but I didn't actually read it, so I don't know. But again, it's just off of what you originally said, and I think you're giving significantly more faith to readers and the people publishing these.
I'm asking you, what is the downside if someone read this and for the first time and went, oh yeah, I guess that is happening?
The downside is us reading it and taking it at its word. Not so much the effect of the immediate article, but us just blindly accepting it. Which is what, honestly, you kind of did, and what it seems like a lot of people are doing.
Why shouldn't I? Why should I have any reason to doubt it?
Because it's one study. Why don't you read 4 other ones? See where they're coming from, or maybe from the year prior. Is it true? Is it even true that these numbers are the first way? What if it was more in 2016?
But because it was consistent.
You don't know.
It was consistent within this article.
You don't.
No, this article based on the same thing over and over again for the last whatever amount of elections. It was the same. It was consistent. I'm reading this and going, yeah, you know what? This probably is true. This reflects what's going on in the world right now. This actually does reflect the fact that we have more divisiveness right now. We have more anger for the other party than we have for our party. I don't see the downside. I don't see that. And if somebody all of a sudden was not aware of it, and this article hits them upside the head and they start to become aware of it, that would seem to be a good thing. And if somebody was aware of it, and it hits them upside the head and just supports what they're thinking.
Again, you're not talking about what I'm talking about.
No, I'm not, because you're going way beyond. You're talking about individual articles and whether or not you should take one article at face value. Of course you shouldn't take one article at face value.
Okay, but that's what you're doing.
This is not some sort of scientific study about the efficacy of vaccination.
But people treat it like it's science.
And so if they do, even if they take it as a science, this particular article and stuff, what is the problem with that? Now, if you're talking about the learning thing and then all of a sudden they do it with something else, tell me if I'm wrong, but you're basically saying that you don't want someone to take an article that says that the COVID vaccine that's coming up is 95% effective. No, you need to read 3 or 4 other articles to make sure that's accurate.
Yeah.
Okay. That is something that's totally different. That is like you said, a scientific...
It's not, because it's critical thinking.
It is critical thinking. But this particular article about the love and hate of the particular one, you can still apply critical thinking.
Okay, and then another issue I have with... Yeah, but people won't. And then here's another thing.
Why do you think they will with the COVID vaccine then?
They won't. That's my point.
So it's not about the articles. It's about critical thinking. It's about teaching that.
Right, but which is something that these outlets will exploit. They know that people aren't exercising critical thinking.
Okay, so what are you supposed to do? Do you assume they're not going to do critical thinking and then cater to that? Or do you assume that somewhere along the line they're
catering to the lack of critical thinking?
Yes, it is. You stay with me because you keep going off to different lanes. You need to answer that question.
Because it's not linear.
No, what do they write to? Who do they write to?
They just write transparently.
Such as? Okay, and when that paper
or whatever the numbers are.
And I have a question. When that paper goes out of business, then what? Because nobody's going to read it.
That's on us to basically decide. Well, that's when it becomes a people thing. It's both of them. It's not linear or linear. It's not linear. There's multiple things existing at the same time. We need to teach more critical thinking and practice more critical thinking.
By the way, there is other articles. I mean, there is more than just mainstream media.
I know.
And so if you're a critical thinker, you're going to go outside the mainstream media.
Exactly.
Okay.
How many other articles did you read? Are you a critical thinker?
Absolutely.
Okay, how many other articles did you read?
I read tons of articles.
How many did you read
for
about
this one? I didn't need to. Why? Wasn't that important. What was the point? Why did I need to critically think it? Tell me. Why?
I've told you why. Because it's not a guaranteed study.
And?
Nothing in this study. So it's basically like saying, I could tell you the same exact thing, ask these questions to different people, and I guarantee you I could get a result in the opposite direction.
Right, and then you would present that.
Right.
Exactly, and then I would take them and I would decide on which one I believed more.
Okay, but then it comes down to your personal belief.
It actually comes down to my critical thinking skills.
How? They're both the same study, presenting the same things.
I would actually look and go, who conducted it? Who was the study? What was the control group? What was the sample group?
Okay, so you're taking this one at its face value because of it. Who did it?
No, I'm taking this one because without any extra scrutiny, because it's not important. It's not this
is important.
No, it's not, because whether or not this is accurate and if it really is, if it's false, I don't care. It doesn't affect anything.
It was important enough for you to bring it up this morning, and you were excited about it.
As a topic. It was literally as a talking point. It was a talking point. It's the same thing as if I said, hey, Moderna came across and says that they have a COVID vaccine that's going to be able to have 95%. And you've got people saying that, I don't trust it. I don't trust that. I don't trust anything that they're saying. They're rushing it. There's no way in hell I'm going to take that COVID COVID vaccine. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what articles do you say that the Moderna isn't going to be accurate?
Okay, but there's a reason that people are saying that, and the reason is because even up until the last few weeks...
Why are we talking about the reason? That's not what we're talking about.
Because the critical thinking part of it...
So that's my point, is that if somebody is willing to just take it on face value, if they're choosing to say that Moderna is telling the truth, okay.
Why is that okay? That goes against...
It's because it's their personal decision. It's their personal decision to decide whether or not.
But they can make a more informed personal decision.
If they want to.
We can help them.
Why should we help them if they don't want to?
They don't know.
They don't know?
No. I didn't get to finish. You jumped on that. People don't know what they don't know. Maybe they think they know it all, or maybe we think we know it all. Maybe we don't know it all. Maybe we know too much about it, or maybe we don't know enough. We know the wrong things.
And again, so it's a science journal, and it says...
The reason
COVID vaccine, proven 95% effective in trials, Moderna, and then it goes into list all of the things.
There's a big reason that and this is a particular case because it's been so politicized, is that for months and months and months and months up until the end
this isn't on our subject.
It kind of is, because there are people that don't trust it when they say 95%, because you had people up until the last week before election when Trump is talking about we're gonna have a vaccine, and then everybody's saying I don't trust that, you're rushing it,
right?
And now it's like, oh yeah, no, it's cool.
But they're not taking that. Those people that were saying I don't trust it actually aren't really exercising critical thinking. They're exercising a judgment. They're exercising prejudice.
They're exercising
a prejudice.
Hesitance because of basically the entire media saying it's been rushed.
Okay, so
and now it's not being rushed.
So how do you how do you convince what would you suggest if you were to say, no, this is these are two. See, that's the problem with it, Austin, is that you have these two companies that are doing it to make money. That's why they're doing it. That's why they're in business. Mm-hmm. Who do you trust? Who do you actually say I'm going to take it because I think it's safe and I want to do my part? How do you trust that? If someone comes along and says I don't trust it, they're just out to make money. I don't even know what they're giving me. It causes autism. Who do you trust?
Well, there's different. It depends on your reasoning. Not everybody.
People believe that autism, they believe that.
I get that, but
and that
not
was debunked.
Everybody.
That was debunked. That was, completely thrashed and stuff. And yet, there's still people that feel that there's a conspiracy of all those people to destroy the people that did it.
That's not going to be every single person that doesn't take the drug. There's going to be.
So the point is that when I took on face value that this article was accurate for these small little parameters, it's fine. There was no reason for me to go further. So what was I supposed to find out? Find out and say, I didn't realize in 2016 the numbers were actually more.
You right. That's the other thing, is it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to prove you wrong. It just makes you more informed. There's no downside.
But it doesn't take, there is. It takes the energy and time that I didn't need to commit to that.
You don't know that.
Yes,
I
did. Because it wasn't nearly as important to me. There was no way that this was going to affect my life.
It was, because you were all excited by the aspect of there's more hate than love, which was the real angle.
I wasn't excited about it. My point was that there was an article with a quantitative analysis based on these parameters, whatever they were, and that was it. If there was another one that contradicted it, okay, does it really change the point that we both agree that there's probably more divisiveness now than there was ever before?
See,
I mean, that was the point.
But that's not the argument. The argument is that more people would vote against, or more people would vote out of...
No, not vote. Feel. More people hated the other person more than they liked their own.
Who even cares about that? That's like a stupid statistic. Like, it's like, okay, but if you're...
Because it goes contrary to common belief. The common belief is that you like your person more, percentage-wise, than you would hate the other person. In other words, it's you know what it comes down to? Cutting your nose off to spite your face.
I know. Okay, so
more people are willing to do that.
Even with that being true,
what difference does it make?
Yeah, the messaging of it is
that's what I said.
Right, but the way it's being presented is the issue with me. And then the other thing is that's not how I remember elections growing up at all. The only thing I remember about elections,
you're not. That's the thing. You're talking about a tipping point. You're talking about a tipping point. Austin, you could have beat.
We've passed the tipping point. So to say that the tipping point was reached this election,
based on what did you say we passed the tipping point? Like what
the
would
number you... we can look at numbers from probably even Al Gore and Bush, but
to say what?
To say that we have at least more partisanship than ever.
Right. That was never in question.
I know, but it might not necessarily be more of a hate or a love, but it's not so much about your guy, which is the focus of what we're trying to say now is we've gotten away from fighting for your guy. You've gotten to fighting for your collective.
But this was specifically related to the fact that more people wanted to see the other person fail than they wanted to see their person succeed.
I would argue that was higher with Hillary Clinton versus
but you
Donald
have
Trump.
No documentation of that. At least I do.
I can Google it. I'm sure I could find documentation for it.
And if it is, then this article is wrong.
Not necessarily. It just means that this poll got numbers that... The point is that it's not science.
I never said it was.
I'm not saying you're saying it's science.
Who is?
Most of the people that'll read that article. They'll do what you did. And they'll be like, oh no, that's the polls, that's the numbers, that's an absolute truth.
They will not do what I did. It was simply that this particular whatever industry, whatever outlet came to that conclusion. It's the same thing when
Why did they come to that conclusion?
Because of the questions they asked, the same questions that they asked to the same demographics for the last 20 or 30 years. I don't understand how you could say it's the same thing as if you said, okay, in 1980, how did people feel about foreign cars? And then you now ask them, how did they feel about foreign cars? There's going to be a difference between those two answers.
Exactly.
And you're saying that's not valid because they didn't ask as many people back in 1980.
No, it's not about the people that they... I mean, it is about the people that they asked, but it's also about circumstances that's going on in
how
life.
do you not...
Somebody's mood in the moment.
Okay, so again, how do you ever compare anything across time then?
You can't do it truly accurately.
I didn't say accurately. I just asked, how do you do it? Because you do need to compare
problem
like
lies
things
with
like 1975, something how people felt about the presidency in 1975 versus how they feel about the presidency now.
Because we're trying to basically use it as an absolute of like, well, this is the way that things are compared to what they were then, when it's not necessarily accurate. We don't know because they could have just answered things differently.
And that is fine, but then you take that into account. I mean, I don't understand how if you take a question
into account because people want to believe the sensationalized version of, oh, we finally
what do you
reached
mean?
this
If somebody
tipping point.
asked the question, how do you feel about the presidency in 1975? In 1975, they asked, how do you feel about the office of the presidency? And you ask that question 30 years later.
No, well, I'm not even so much talking about that because this particular basically since the 2000s, the elections have been.
You have a problem. You have a problem with the fact that this makes it sound like it's the first time, and it may not be the first time.
I have a problem with it sounding like it's making a.
Because
it's a bubbling of a new problem.
The words "first time." That's what you have a problem with.
Yeah, because that indicates it's the start of something. Indisputably. Period. That's what the first of means.
Yes, it's the first time that the hate has been greater than the love.
And you can honestly tell me that you believe that to be true. Living. Just forget numbers. Just living.
Oh, I don't. They could have gone back and forth. See, that again, in 2016, it very well may have been 49 to 51. And now it's 51 to 49. Because the numbers can be that specific in the percentages. So you can't argue that, sure, 49 to 51 and 51 to 49. Would we have felt a difference in that 2%?
Absolutely.
Oh, hell no. Absolutely
Depending
not.
on who you're around or anything like that.
There's no way that that 2% as
because
a whole you would know. Because your bubble, not your bubble, but anyone's bubble would have probably been the same back then.
Not true. And contrary to the belief was that we experience things as a nation, not true.
But Austin, that makes no sense. You think that you can tell the difference in the population of 51 to 49?
Yeah.
How?
Because the reactions, especially with the advent of the internet.
So how did Hillary win the popular vote?
What do you mean? She won the popular vote. It's simple. There's not.
So then obviously not more people hated her than Trump because Trump won the election. So people didn't hate Hillary. But it wasn't about that.
It's not about more people on a mass scale hating somebody. It's about people who would normally align with something hating somebody.
People did not hate Hillary more than Donald Trump. I mean, as far as these numbers.
Yeah, but that's not what these numbers are about.
No, it is. They apparently.
No, these numbers are about people hating the other person more than their own guy.
Right.
But, or the reverse of that. But yeah, but it's not about everybody hating somebody. It's about people changing how they would normally vote.
If the Republicans hated Hillary so much, how did she get the popular vote? When they voted enough,
that's not what the numbers are about. The numbers are about people that would change their mind based on.
No, it's not. It was talking about like a Republican would still vote for Trump, but they hated Hillary more than they liked Trump. That's all. That's all it was saying. Was that their feelings were stronger. They had stronger feelings of hate than they had good feelings for theirs.
This sounds like a completely different statistic than what it was approached to me as.
No, I told you what it was about. I said literally that the dislike for the other opponent was greater than their like for their own. That was always consistent. I've always said that. They hated the other person more than they liked their own. So the voting doesn't actually make a difference when it comes down to it because they're still going to vote for their guy. Now, they don't have to. They don't have to. But
well, maybe. So a lot of people didn't like George W. Bush, but they really hated Al Gore and they didn't believe in climate change and all that stuff.
Yeah. But not as much. They still thought that Bush was a good choice. Like, there's a lot of people that would say that Trump is not a better president than
W. Bush. Yeah, I think most people.
No. Trump is not better president than Biden. But they're still going to vote for Trump. That's the irrationality of it. The fact that I hate Biden so much. Okay, so
what I would like to segue this into then is, it's just another way of saying tribalism and partisanship has reached new levels.
Yeah.
Which I would argue,
I totally
what
agree with
difference
that.
does it really make if it reached a new stratosphere if the outcome is the same anyway?
I could go with that.
So it just feels kind of like a needless statistic.
I never said it wasn't. I just said it was a quantifiable thing that basically what you've been feeling. I even said that before we came on the air. I'm like, it's just.
But I don't need something to back up how I'm feeling. It's not. I don't really. Especially when
I didn't
it's
say
something
you
that's
did.
not.
I wasn't saying that.
I know you're not.
You know,
saying
your
that,
response could have actually been that when I said that, you could say, "Oh, that makes sense. I totally believe that because that's what I've been feeling." I'm not sure it's actually just happened in 2020 because it may have even happened in 2016. But I totally agree with that.
That's pretty much what I said. I never said that I disagreed with the results of it. I said that
you jumped on it because you didn't feel that was a good way of saying it because you thought first time
because the messaging is more
important.
The messaging will almost always be more important than the message.
But again, the point of it, whether how it was messaged, whether you felt it was good or bad, it still supported your argument.
Yeah, it doesn't. I'm not going to accept it just because it supports me.
I'm not saying you should. What I meant is that it just supported your argument. You could have then said, you know what, you're right. I read a couple other articles or I've seen some other things and stuff. All of that. But that is not the reaction you gave me. Your reaction was, I don't think that they should call it a first That was actually, I think, your point.
Because it's counterproductive.
Because it's going to make some people feel like there hasn't been an ongoing problem.
Right.
Okay, so who do you target to? The people that already know it's an ongoing problem, and you're just basically saying...
It's public access news.
Okay, Austin, how should it be written?
Everybody. Oh, how should it be written?
How do you, because you're saying that you're afraid that this article, however it was written, let's just say however it was written, is going to then all of a sudden be a shock to someone who didn't know that this was going on. Because they don't have the critical thinking skills that are up to this point.
No, it's not even that they don't have them. It's more to do with the headline and the immediate message you get from that. Instead of going, problem gets even worse, this happens.
No, but in the article, and I don't know verbatim and stuff, but I do know that they said it's always been the case. It's growing. It's because we know that. That's obvious. We've experienced it. That it's been growing.
It's a sensationalized headline. When you use something like first time.
It was true. It was the first time.
Well, of course you can find a way to marginalize it as true. That's how people get away with it.
Marginalize it as true.
Yes, because it's true in like the least relevant way.
But the point is that it was true.
In the least relevant way.
Okay, so what? But what is the alternative? What do you want the alternative to be?
Problem gets worse.
Okay, so you're basically saying, wait, hold on. You want a headline that says, continuing problem of hate and love is higher now than it.
I hate those terms.
Okay,
why do we keep using hate and love?
Like and dislike. The like and dislike is at a higher point than it's ever been before.
Yeah, that'd be more fitting.
Okay, so that was in the article.
I know that.
How many people,
better than most. How many people just scroll something?
That's fine. I don't understand why. But that's my point, Austin. Is that who are you catering to?
You have to cater to everybody. They're a public access news. It's not like somebody's paying for it, like the New Yorker or something like that.
You cannot cater to everybody.
You got to try.
No, you
especially
cannot.
When you're a public access news channel.
No, but they're not a public access. CNN is a for-profit company. Fox is a for-profit company.
Then they should not advertise themselves as trying to be the information for everybody. They're not then. That's misleading.
Okay. Then go listen to NPR. Go listen to PBS.
I do generally over...
and leave the other ones alone.
Okay, but it's on them because they say they're here for everybody.
They're not. You know what? A deodorant company that says you stink, you should use our product. You may not like the fact that they're using a shaming technique, but it's up to them.
I know. But the point that you're willfully not accepting is that it's the way they're broadcasting themselves.
I don't have a problem with it. I can distinguish between it.
Right, but not everybody can.
And then that's not for them. That is not CNN. That is not Fox. That's the problem. Okay, can they go too extreme? Can they like in Fox's case?
Why do people get so mad at Fox News?
Because they're not journalism. They say that they're journalism.
Says who?
Oh my God.
By the same standards that...
It's not, though. It's obvious. You can actually see. They actually have news anchors. And then they have columnists and people that talk.
Right. But they're a for-profit company. They're selling something.
Yeah, what's your point?
My point is it's the same thing.
No, it's not.
It is.
What?
If they're both a company selling something, they're just selling a different product. But they have to abide by the same rules. CNN and Fox News are playing by the same rules.
Yeah. I still don't understand your point. They both have people that are actually news people.
My point
and
is
they actually have people that are just commentators.
Right. My point is that everybody gets mad at Fox News because they're supposed to be news.
Do you think it's possible that Fox News lies? Because they do.
Yeah, sure they do.
Okay, but again, Fox News in and of itself has different segments. When you watch it, it's not all the same.
I know.
Just like the sports section is not the same.
If we are supposed to be able to delineate between what is being sold to us and what isn't, then we should not hold Fox News more accountable than we hold CNN.
We hold Fox News more accountable because they don't do as much, or they actually have less and less news. They call it news, but it's not.
Okay, but if you're aware of that, that's just their product. Don't buy it.
Exactly.
Okay, then don't complain about it.
I don't.
I'm not saying you do. I'm just talking to everybody in general. If that's the principle that we're going by, that CNN and Fox News are both selling a product disguised as news, maybe one of them is more news, maybe one of them isn't.
You're missing the point. Fox News and some of the other ones, Fox News will actually say that the information they're giving you is news, and it's not. It's commentary. CNN, on the other hand, probably does the same, but rarely do they talk about something that's quote unquote news, and then then just have
final product is, it doesn't matter because it's just a product.
Again, who are you supposed to cater to?
Apparently those two, because their businesses can cater to whoever they want.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Just like NPR does. They survive off of PBS and NPR. They survive off of public funds.
Right.
That's their group. Maybe you're their group. Maybe you're their demographic.
Right. My issue, and I'll tie this back into the
NPR,
polling.
PBS, and stuff. A lot of people would say that they lean left.
Right. Yeah. Okay, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's their agenda. But I digress. I'll tie this back into the polls from the beginning. Is we are choosing to subscribe to something that we're seeing. Now, it might have some substantive backing to it, but it does not make it absolute. And far too many people, not necessarily you, but far too many people.
So how do you counter that? You don't counter that, Austin, with the companies changing their methods. You counter it with the grassroots down at the level of parenting, education, and actually it just comes down to those
but that kind of stuff doesn't really happen anymore.
But you're talking about then making the state, you're basically saying that if you stretch out your concept and saying that then who's going to control, who's going to tell what these companies like MSNBC and C, who's going to tell them what they can do?
It's just not.
How do they operate? Play your system out. Play your thought out. Who tells them how they need to?
We do. We control it.
And that's what's happening right now. People are okay with it.
Because we're choosing, yes, which is bad.
And you know why? Because they're not taught critical thinking.
Yes.
So it's not the company's fault.
I'm not saying it's the company's
fault. The companies contribute to it. They contribute to it. I get
willfully.
That. Right.
I'm not saying
but that's
that
also
it's the
because
company.
It's capitalism.
I know that. I'm not saying that it is the company's fault in that respect. I am saying it's the company's fault when they say that they're being unbiased, or they say they're just doing this. They say they're just reporting the news when they're not.
Okay,
and they're aware of that.
Great. Okay. What's your solution?
We would have to hold them more accountable, which is what I'm trying to do. But when I do that,
how are you holding them more accountable?
By not watching them. I don't feed into it. I don't pay ad revenue. I don't subscribe. I don't do any of that.
That's not holding them accountable.
That's the only way we can hold them accountable.
Okay, so you're going to tell other people to do the same?
Yes, I would tell them not to feed into them money-wise.
Okay.
Because it's capitalism and you vote with your dollars.
So what would they like to show? What should they watch otherwise?
Google, I don't know, Google some some bipartisan or nonpartisan, or maybe something in the UK, the BBC. There's a bunch of different options.
So if they do that, then that's fine. How do they get revenue?
How do who get revenue?
The BBC, the NPRs, the PBSs.
The web trafficking. Or you buy merchandise, or you buy, I don't know, there's a bunch of different...
But that's my point, is that they all can coexist. They all can coexist, and it comes down to your personal choice as to which one you want to go to.
Yeah, your personal choice is if you... It's comforting.
You know what?
Okay, but it's comforting. That's the biggest thing.
But you want to know, though, that just because everything you said may be true doesn't mean that CNN, Fox, NBC doesn't still actually deliver sometimes
real content,
real news. But if you're thinking that their whole angle is that they're trying to, trick in, when are you going to...
It's not that dramatic.
When are you going to then accept and say, well, CNN's good here, but not here. Fox is good in here, but not here.
Well, yeah, that's the reality of the situation. It's not that dramatic. I feel like you take everything I say and make it sound like some extreme.
You know why? Because all I hear is the complaining, and I do not hear the solutions.
I've given solutions.
No, your solutions didn't have solutions. Your solutions were go somewhere else. Well, those people have to have an income. Those people have to generate income, and you know how they do it? They cater
what people?
Like PBS,
what
NPR.
People?
What do you mean, what people? The people that watch that. You know how they get catered? It's because they're told that they are better than everyone else. The people that watch PBS.
It's comforting.
Right. So my point is they're doing the same thing. They're just doing it on the other side of the aisle. They're saying, you are more educated. You are more enlightened because you watch PBS and you listen to NPR.
How is this a good thing?
I'm not saying it. I'm just saying that it's the same thing. So if I read an article, if this article was given to me by NPR, therefore somehow the credibility of it is greater.
No, you don't take one. That's the whole point. Is you don't take one source as the end all be all.
No, I agree that if it's something important enough.
If somebody
told me that the best cheeseburger was down at Joe's Cheeseburger Shack, Do I need to research that?
There's a difference between talking about current elections and the attitudes of the people versus how good a burger is.
You should apply everything.
You should, but there's a difference in how it's weighted.
Again,
it's not
do you
that
realize
linear.
some people that whether or not that cheeseburger, that issue is more important to them than the election?
Okay, that's their decision.
Exactly.
But
it's their decision.
There are weighted truths, though. There are weighted
truths.
Yeah, there are things that are more relevant and mean more than other things.
And guess what? This one, I had no intentions whatsoever of researching it because my own personal experience, in addition to all the other things that I had read, just that were somewhat associated,
already validated it.
Well, not validated it, but based like you said, you felt that this was invalidated because you felt that you'd experienced more.
Yes, and again, the messaging of it. It's not necessarily that the study is invalidated. See, I feel like you think that multiple things can't exist at the same time.
This is the problem. When you change the messaging, who should dictate what the messaging is?
I don't know. I don't have an answer. It shouldn't, it can't 100% be, somebody holding these companies accountable because they are, businesses. And then, but it's also unrealistic to expect, if somebody doesn't have good parents or a good support system or whatever, it's unrealistic for us to expect them to know how to critically analyze it. And then, this
is the problem. This is what I'm asking you.
I know, but there has to be a solution, and the solution is probably going to be a mixture of both. The people that have the critical thinking skills,
you know where it comes down
to hold these businesses accountable.
It's going to come down to the education and parenting, to instill.
I don't think it's going to be so much the education, though.
Wait, education. Yes, it actually is, because our educational system is broken, and they do not.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what I meant by education.
Yeah,
the educational system needs to also reinforce critical thinking, especially in the digital age. Parents need to instill critical thinking. As that happens, if there's more and more of that, then what will happen is more people like you, because you were taught this, will look at CNN and go, "That's not okay, CNN." And enough people will do that. And then, of course, it'll force CNN to change. It'll actually be the opposite of what has happened. If you went back 50 years, when they talk about Walter Cronkite and some of those guys, they did just sit up there for 2 hours or 1 hour every night and just said the news.
Right.
And people took it, and then they talked about it with their families and stuff like that. That was what happened.
Right.
So that's exactly how the opposite of what has happened is evolved. What needs to happen is that needs to be reversed. So until more people are critical thinking, until more people feel that critical thinking is important and start instilling that and so on and so forth, you will have this. Now, can some of the companies decide to be more socially responsible? Sure. I think that's possible. They may find it, but they're going to have to make that decision that, hey, we're going to try to be good for the sake of being better. We're going to try to be better for the sake of being better.
But in the meantime, are we just enabling it?
You're not.
No, I know, but
but again,
I don't get it. Why? In what possible world is it acceptable to believe that? Oh well, they're business though. So I guess they can do it.
You haven't given me the solution. You haven't even given me
a bunch of solutions.
No, you
haven't. Just don't like any of them.
What are you talking about? Give me one. No, you haven't. I'm asking you. You just asked about whether or not we're supposed to just let it be, or not let it be, but let CNN do whatever they're going to do, or Fox or MSNBC, right?
Right.
So, are you saying that somebody should make them change their approach? Because if you're not...
Yeah, essentially. I mean, directly and indirectly.
Who?
Us.
Yes, us. But that's going to be based through critical thinking. We need to get the critical thinking going at a ground level. We need to get it back. Maybe it was greater in the past. I don't know. Maybe it was. Mm-hmm. But the critical thinking is what's going to be... that's what's going to enable the masses to then be able to dictate to the media and consumerism in general, because it's happened actually in consumerism. It's happened where all those slick marketing and advertising things don't work anymore. We know what.
Well, they've just evolved them. It doesn't absolve these companies of responsibility, though. No,
it doesn't, and that was the point about socially responsible. They can choose to be. I personally think companies should be socially responsible. I think they have not necessarily
within a reason. I mean, it doesn't. They don't have to be absolute moralists or whatever. But the trouble with the thinking that I hear you say is that if people take that, they use that and weaponize it and basically absolve the people in these high up positions or whatever, and they'll say, well, we're a business. We can do what we want.
I think the problem is bigger, and it needs to start with creating generations. This is a generational thing.
It can start in multiple places.
Okay, but this is the problem that I have with your aspect of it, is that you want to choose somebody to tell these companies, in the meantime, while we're building this critical thinking up,
But it's not a singular person.
It can't be the people, though, because we've already passed that point.
There's enough people.
No, if you have adults that do not have the critical thinking skills that are needed, they're not going to be the ones that are going to be able to take their dollars.
Okay, but it's also not all about critical thinking. It's about intuition and feeling and understanding and using what we see around us and stuff. And then also just challenging what somebody in power says.
That's critical thinking.
I know, but it's not
even trusting your gut and stuff like that, where you talked about your intuition and all that stuff. That's fine. But again, the onus has to be on the personal responsibility, individual level. And what I get nervous about is when I hear, well, the companies need to change. They need to change their approach to the masses. Yes, they do. They need to be responsible. But the problem with that is that who holds them responsible? And if you say us, like you did, when you say us, we're not capable of that. As a society, you've told me that many times, that I give society...
No, I haven't said that. No, I think that society is capable of it.
Not at the current state. Because you've told me that I give them way too much credit.
You do, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that they're not capable of this.
No, I agree. I think they are capable of this. So again, it becomes the personal responsibility of the person to say, I don't trust this.
What if they don't know that they can?
Then who's to tell them that they can, that they know that they can? That parents, community, educational system, because those are the only people that can.
Who controls all that stuff, though? If the parents are indoctrinated with the belief that they just take whatever's given to them.
You literally change it when you have kids. You're talking to your friends, which I know you do, and when they have kids.
But we don't. We're talking 100 years from now. Who has that sort of time?
It's taken 50, 60 years to get to the point where we are now.
Right, and maybe we did things the wrong way.
But that's the problem, is that what do you propose when you want to talk about shortcutting? You're literally, basically, what we're not saying is that you're talking about telling companies what they can and cannot do because society, in your view, isn't capable of doing it themselves.
It's just trying to hold them more accountable. There are enough people.
Again, you talk about...
You and me, but honestly, you don't seem like you want to.
No, the problem is because I have the critical thinking skills that I can delineate between... well, no, actually, that's not true. My point is that I want to hold them socially responsible, but I'm not going to tell them that they have to do this or have to do that.
They're the same thing.
No, it's not. Because capitalism dictates the fact that you can do what you want to do, and if I don't like it, I'm not going to give you my dollars, eyeballs, whatever. They equate each other. So if they want to be socially responsible, then I have to convince enough people. I need to convince enough people to do the same thing or think the same way as I think.
Okay.
That's what it comes down to. So again, it's like I said, you talking to your friends, raising other children, or raising your children. That's the point. That is how it's going to change. And if you're trying to shortcut it and tell them that, well, somebody needs to hold them accountable, and you say that society needs to hold them accountable, but at the same time, it's the same society that you don't feel is equipped, which is why we need the change, because if society isn't equipped, that's why we need to force them. Then how is that society going to be the one to hold them responsible?
Look, I don't have 100% of the answer, but it's not one or the other. They can both operate at the same time, and the only way that will have any real meaningful change is if both of them happen at the same time.
I agree, but you're not you're not going to...
I'm not saying it's legislature. I'm not saying we need to make it law.
Well, then the companies won't... Then I completely agree with you that I don't know what incentive the companies have to change.
It'll have to take people that are fed up with it and more vocal about it, and instead of allowing it to happen, and be like, well, this is closer to my ideology, so I'm going to watch this.
Right, so there is one idea that could be changing this. If Trump goes out and creates his own media empire, that's going to push Fox more to the left, which is ironic.
Yeah, but just because it's still playing in the same game of rules, though, that we want.
Right, but what I'm saying is that could change things. That could shift things. Where all of a sudden it brings to light the fact that Trump, if he's playing by much dirtier rules, if his media empire is playing even more to the common denominator, they're even playing more on the sensationalism and stuff like that, it might actually register in a lot of people that I don't like that. I know I'm being abused. And it triggers what you're talking about. It triggers something within society.
A catalyst to do it.
Correct. And I think that's exactly how your idea of it happening twice, parallel. Because society will start moving in that direction right here and now.
Yeah, kind of.
I'm trying to extend a bridge here.
Yeah. Yes, it does, but
I'm trying to give a solution, which is something that I have not heard.
Well, because I don't know how much of a solution it really. Yes, it might end up being a solution, but it also could end up just being a compromise within playing in the same field.
So again, I'm hearing more complaints, no solutions. You have to give something. I
don't have to give you shit. So stop asking for it.
No, you do.
I can give
if you're going to present all this bitching about how bad it is without any idea of a solution to it.
I have. You're just not looking for
this
them.
Is what your
I've
solution
said that
is.
you
Society
take
needs
things
to
from
change.
multiple sources. I've said that people need to exercise more critical thinking. I've said that people need to hold where they're getting their information from.
How do they
more
do
accountable.
that?
And then you've countered that with saying, well, it's not that important because this particular study does this.
No, that's not
or
true
this
at all.
other
I did not say that was important. The fundamental aspect is that we need more critical thinking and personal responsibility.
Right.
But you think that in addition to that, we need to hold corporations responsible.
Because if we're successfully exercising those critical thinking skills, we would hold them accountable.
Exactly. I agree. So we need to increase the critical thinking and personal responsibility.
And there is more than enough people that are already thinking like that to hold these people accountable.
But I also thought I heard you say that there's a way to shortcut that. That we need...
I've never said shortcut.
I'm using that word, meaning that it can expedite, because you told me my way is going to take way too long.
Yeah, it would take a long time.
Right. So you were saying that we need to start holding companies accountable now in order to be able to enact that change.
Right, because we can't just keep putting it on to our kids and our kids and our kids. Right. It's an unrealistic expectation and unfair.
And all I asked was, how do we hold those companies responsible?
By us now doing both at the same time.
I agree.
Basically telling
but there obviously isn't enough people, otherwise we wouldn't be in this spot in the first place.
That's not true. I think it's growing every day. I hear more people dissatisfied with things.
Right, and that was why I brought up the Trump example of the media empire, that might expedite.
Yeah, and that could totally expedite it. But that's not necessarily a solution. It's just part of a solution. It's a stepping stone to something.
I agree.
But the way that I took it when you were trying to advertise it was like, well, that's a solution. It's not. It might be a part of a solution. It might lead to a solution.
It is a solution. It's part of the solution. It makes it part of the solution. So it is a solution.
I know, but it's not.
Is it the finalist solution? No, we've already established what that is. That's increasing critical thinking and personal responsibility. That is the end-all solution.
Well, and yeah, okay. Well, that would be like me saying, "Oh, well, you got to get your information from multiple different places" as a solution.
No, that's part of critical thinking. That's the action of critical thinking.
Is critical thinking the solution?
Yes.
No, because the solution has to be something more concrete, like an actual end game.
No, teaching critical thinking. If you taught critical thinking, they would understand.
There's no guarantee
how do you apply critical thinking.
Right,
what you're talking about is applying critical thinking.
I know, but there's no guarantee that even if people applied it, that would be the solution. Because maybe...
Then we're back to what is the solution.
Right. There is no absolute way to know it.
I actually am putting my flag in the ground saying that it's personal responsibility and critical thinking.
Yes, that is the most effective way and the most likely way. But that does not guarantee that that's what's going to happen.
So what do you suggest? This is literally an open conversation.
I have suggested the same things. I keep coming back to the same things. What you said. You can't just steal what I said. I said that in the beginning.
No, we've always agreed that critical thinking, where we add the difference is that you feel like it needs to be sped up and hold companies responsible.
Yeah, I'm saying that I think that you think your way is going to take longer, and if you're saying that we have the same way, based on how you explained it, it's going to be a generational thing.
Yes.
If you're saying that we agree in the same things that are going to solve this, it won't take as long as you say that it will between the generations.
Well, then wouldn't that be a good thing then?
Yes. But what I'm telling you is it won't be a generational thing. It can't be a generational thing. That won't work.
Why not?
It can't solely be a generational thing.
Okay, so the next step is?
Us in the current moment doing both. Teaching people if they want to be... I mean, but again, that's so pandering. We don't know more. It's not on us. It's not our position to be like some fucking saviors.
Right, this is the catch-22 that I've been trying to present to you. That was it. You just said it.
How?
So, if we're not the ones to do it, then who... I guess if the baseline is that we need to get current people, to critically think more and take more personal responsibility.
Well,
who are the ones to get those people to do that?
But it's not to teach them the critical thinking. Chances are they already know it.
Then how? Then fine.
It's to help them feel more comfortable.
Who does
in expressing it?
Who does that?
Somebody who's more outspoken. Somebody who isn't afraid to be wrong.
So why can't it be you?
It can be.
Okay, so then there is no pandering.
Well, it is depending on how you phrase it. It's pandering if you say that you need to teach somebody how to think.
Oh, okay. But my point is that is in where it lies, is that you can be the one to tell people to help people
right.
use it.
Right. But the thing is these people, the ones that are going to try to show, they're going to be wrong sometimes.
Of course, mistakes made.
Right. And that has to be accepted.
Okay.
But most of the time people don't want to accept those.
Well, if they've already gone through enough process to have critical thinking and personal responsibility, then they'll be able to understand that.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
And with that, think more, care more, live more, and remember, you can change your life. We can change the world one decision at a time. Personal responsibility, critical thinking. We're on the same page with that.
Yes.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you next time.